Hey, what is up YouTube? So today I have another epic video for you guys. I'm going to be comparing Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 2 versus Tenkaichi 3. These two games are my favorite PS2 games of all time, my favorite Dragon Ball Z games. I love them. They were amazing games when I played them as a kid, and they're still amazing games today. Now, I'm going to compare these two games in terms of their gameplay, the characters present in each game, and a bunch of other things that I'll explain in the video. So let's get started. Alright, so I'm going to start off this comparison by comparing the fighting techniques and gameplay in both games. So when looking at the fighting techniques in both games, you find that Tenkaichi 3 just has, a bit more moves that you could use, and the moves were a lot easier to use in terms of when using the controller, like a lot easier to play. Whereas in Tenkaichi 2, it was a bit more complicated, but overall they were very similar. Just like the gameplay, they're very identical. Like if you have them side by side, there really isn't a big difference. Yeah, maybe when you're powering up in Tenkaichi 3 and like the definition and the characters, things like that, it was a bit better, and I believe that the arenas were a bit bigger in Tenkaichi 3, but in general it was very similar. You couldn't really take no big difference overall. Now moving on to the graphics of each game, we find that they're both very similar. You see that Tenkaichi 2 was, it came out in 2006, whereas Tenkaichi 3 came out a year later in 2007, so the graphics were very similar. Nothing too big of a difference. Yeah, maybe Tenkaichi 3 had, a bit more detail in terms of the drawing of the characters and the arenas, but overall the graphics were very similar, and I was pleased with both of them. So now in terms of the character selection, Tenkaichi 3 does dominate here just because there were so many more characters that were available. I think Tenkaichi 3 has about 160 characters, whereas Tenkaichi 2 has about 130. So I know that Tenkaichi 3, came out with Nova Shenron, King Vegeta, all the different versions of Goku from each saga, and many more. Whereas Tenkaichi 2 only had the basic characters, but they were still awesome. Like the 30 characters does make a bit of a difference, just because it makes the game more enjoyable to play because there's more to choose from. But in my opinion, these two games have the best classic character selection of any Dragon Ball Z game ever made. Okay, so for the story mode, I do think that Tenkaichi 2 does have a much better story mode when compared to Tenkaichi 3. The only reason is because Tenkaichi 2 actually had like a map where you can actually fly around and then like land at certain points in the game, like on the map, sorry. So it just like having that ability to just fly around and just cruise on the map is pretty cool. Whereas in Tenkaichi 3 it was very boring. All you did was click on the saga, like whatever saga you're playing, and then click the scenario, and then you just start fighting. Whereas in Tenkaichi 2 there was like a bit more freedom. You can actually fly around and do different things. So I do think that this is the only area where Tenkaichi 2 is a lot, does do better than Tenkaichi 3. And lastly, the different game modes in each game. So in Tenkaichi 3, you had things like Sim Dragon, where it was like a battle simulator. You fight and like rest and do travel the world, whatever. And then in Mission 100 in Tenkaichi 3, that's where you have like so many different missions, and you fight, a set group of people or a set group of characters, and you try to get, the highest possible level, which I think is Z. And then in Survival, there's like 3 modes where like you just fight one character after the other. I think it's like 50 or like 100, and you just try to beat all of them and try to get a level Z at the end. And then so yeah, those were the different type of game modes in Tenkaichi 3. And then in Tenkaichi 2 you had like Ultimate Battle Z, where like you would have like different like the Corner Tower, or like different types of characters, and you would just fight them one by one and try to get to the very top, and they'll give you like a grade. And yeah, so those are the different game modes. Both game modes did have a tournament, like a world tournament. I do think that Tenkaichi 2 had the better one, just because you were able to choose the level you wanted to play as, or like level 1, 2, 3, like in terms of difficulty. And then you have things like in Tenkaichi 3, it was all random, so you couldn't choose the tournament that you wanted to play, and you couldn't choose a level if you wanted to make like the Zenny in the game. And both games do have like a training mode where you can just go and train and learn how to play the game. So yeah, those are all the different game modes in both games. In terms of which one's better, I do believe that Tenkaichi 3 was a little bit better, just because there was more selection in terms of like Mission 100 and Survival and things like that. It was just a lot funner to play. Whereas in Tenkaichi 2, I think it fell short a little bit, just because the only really good thing it had was the Ultimate Battle Z, and the tournament was just a bit better. Now for a final verdict, obviously Budokai Tenkaichi 3 is a lot better than Tenkaichi 2 in most aspects, except for the story mode and the world tournament. But you can't really say that it's better just because it came from Tenkaichi 2. because of Tenkaichi 2, Tenkaichi 3 was able to be made and be able to give us an awesome game and allow us to play. And you know, it was really fun to play both games. I loved both of them. So that is the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.